Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is
land,
Rosie Rosette, but I want you guys to hear this.
An edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica,
Wait.
still in circulation.
This was really interesting to me. I don't know how to... This was about...
The Aborigines were deemed to be subhuman, little more than animals, which was to justify not only the theft of their land, but their extermination. An edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, still in circulation when I was at school, described them as only an animal of prey, more ferocious than the leopard or the hyena. He devours his own species. So they were hunted and raped and massacred. And few doubted at the time that genocide was official policy. A government report in the 1850s spoke of the success of poisoning Aborigines, 100 of them laid out at a time. But until quite recently, little of this was even acknowledged. In Tasmania, the Aborigines were said to have died out. In fact, they were hunted along with kangaroos and almost wiped out. In New South Wales, by 1845, the tribe who had watched Captain Cook sail here into Botany Bay was reduced to 3 women and a man. In Victoria, an Aborigine called old Mr. Burt recalled this story told by his mother.
They buried our babies with only their heads above the ground. All in a row they were. Then they had a test to see who could kick the babies' heads off the furthest. One man clobbered a baby's head off from horseback. They then spent most of the day raping the women. Most of them were then tortured to death by sticking sharp things like spears up their vaginas until they died. They tied the men's hands behind their backs, then cut off their penis and testicles, and watched them run around screaming until they died.
One of the most enduring myths about the Aborigines is that they did not fight back. In fact, the war of resistance lasted more than a century, some of it here on the banks of the Hawkesbury River, north of Sydney. During the 1930s, my father built a cottage here, on the beach at an Aboriginal place called Patonga. I think we knew that somebody had lived at Patonga at some time, but no one talked about it. In fact, an entire nation had lived here on and off for thousands of years. They were called the Jurag, a unique Aboriginal people, tall and slender, whose country extended to a 40-mile radius north of Sydney, and the mighty Hawkesbury River was theirs. And when the British established the town of Windsor in the early 1800s, a great war began. This war was not recorded in the Imperial Chronicles of Australia. Growing up here, I knew nothing about it, and I suspect that's still true of the people in the smart beach houses here today. And yet the Jurag inflicted on the British a casualty rate greater than that sustained by the Australian Armed Forces during all of World War II. And finally, after 22 years, outnumbered and without guns, they went down fighting to the last man, woman and child, a complete nation. Today, in a land of many cenotaphs and war memorials on which invariably is written, "Lest we forget," not one of them stands for those who fought and fell in their own country. By the 1920s, the British invasion had caused the deaths of at least 250,000 black Australians. Genocide on a massive scale. But this fact remained suppressed, except in the living memory of those who survived. Here in the Northern Territory, in the great isolated heartland of Australia, the killing of Aborigines continued well into the 20th century, and most of these also remain secret. However, in 1928, 150 miles from Alice Springs, a gang of police and cattlemen massacred at least 50 Aborigines, perhaps many more, and word got out. A public inquiry was held, and its findings were summarized in these 3 words: the shooting was justified. In giving evidence, Constable William Murray said, "We shot to kill. What use is a wounded black..."
Okay, so I got this from, I guess something that I just subscribed to on Instagram called United Black Library. And I knew that, there were Aborigines in Australia. But I never actually either knew or paid attention to the disparity that they went through when the British came over and annihilated their entire existence, almost. And I was like, well, wait a minute. This is the same thing that the British did when they came over to the Americas. They did the same thing to Indians. This is the same thing that, who's the guy who from Belgium who wiped out millions of people from the Congo? You know, I told you when I went to Brussels, Belgium, right? I was like, well, what are all of these black, you know, African blacks or whatever doing here or whatever? Then I went on a tour and I saw, you know, they gave me the history. We went to a park at the top of something, and then we crossed the street, and then there were stairs. I have pictures. If you look on my Facebook, Rosie Rosette, and look at my pictures from Belgium, I'm taking pictures with some ladies, and we're at the top of the stairs, and you know, the backdrop. But across the street from that, there was a park, and we did a walking tour. I was so ashamed. I felt so dirty. The same way I felt ignorant. It wasn't ashamed. I just felt ignorant because I didn't know of this massacre that had happened in history. And I just didn't know. My parents didn't, teach me. I didn't learn in college. I didn't learn in high school. I was just never taught. So, by feeling that and, just understanding how many Africans were massacred, within this time, it was really sad. The same way I felt when I was in Vietnam. And I went to that museum. If you're ever in Ho Chi Minh, go to the museum, the War Museum. And believe me, on that top floor, whatever, and there's a room, I think it's called Agent Orange Room or something like that. But there's pictures of all the things that had happened during that war. And it was I just walked out and I felt so dirty. And actually, I was really scared because I was like, oh my goodness, did they really, are they really allowing Americans back in after all this had happened? But to have this happen in Australia, and really there's no reparations. I think I heard that there may possibly be some added reparations, but this was horrible. I mean, literally, did you hear what they did to the babies? They buried the babies with their heads above ground, and then they would kick the heads off, or a horse would kick the heads off. Like, literally, this was savagery. This was savagery. Now, I think Nick Cannon got fired for calling, I don't know, who did he call? Did he call Jewish people savagery? I'm calling savagery. Okay, they did that to, you've seen the videos of what happened to slaves. You've seen videos of me remarking about what has happened to my ancestors. You've seen videos of what is happening to my fellow black brothers and sisters. You're hearing, you saw this on video, how they planted the babies with the heads up, and they would play kickball with them and kick the little heads off of the bodies. And then they would rape the women, and then I don't even know what it's called. Is it sodomy? No, they would stick sharp instruments up. They would stick sharp instruments up their vaginas until they died. They would castrate, men. I don't know why I didn't say this on this, but when I looked at it before, this is what I was looking for. They would castrate men. I'm looking for these because I have these on top. That's what I was looking for earlier. Sorry, you guys. They would castrate men and then have them run around, screaming until they died. Like, this is absolute savagery, if not other things. So why did Nick Cannon get fired for telling the truth? I know the truth, shouldn't the truth set us free? But considering all this was over in Australia. I'm talking about America. Where is our reparations? Like, America, I think in order for America to have its due and to be at peace, you're going to have to repair what has happened in history. Now, taking down a couple of statues, renaming a couple of military bases, and giving us $1,200 checks is not going to be enough. No. Trump, Biden, Obama really should have did it when he was in office. He really should have. That should have been his legacy. Why it wasn't, I'm not exactly sure. Let me run for president and win, and let me tell you, that's going to be the first order. And if you don't like it, nothing's getting passed. That would be number one. That would be my very first order, to reconstruct the Constitution so that black people, because I am black, would be full citizens, okay? Because there's still, an addendum in the Constitution, or there's something in the Constitution. I'm gonna have to look that up. Secondly, like, right the day after, I would get sworn in. First thing, we would reconstruct the Constitution. That would be number one. Number two, we would get all black people reparations. Okay, now let's go ahead. Now we can go on with everything else. You see what I'm saying? Now, every black person starting would get $350,000. That's starting. Okay, health care, education, maybe even a house. Maybe even a Cadillac Escalade. That would boost the economy, okay? A Cadillac Escalade or a Tesla, whichever you want. Okay, all the black people would get that. Okay, now, education and health care, psychiatric help. Kanye would be number one. Okay, then we can move on. Okay, now what you want, China? Okay, China, Africa, let's go. Africa, you're going to start importing some stuff over here. China, you hold on, because we're going to have to figure out your spies and whatever else is going on. Putin, what's going on with Putin? We would have to send some troops to Libya to free the slaves. Just a lot of things would have to happen that I don't know what Kamala Harris is, doing or whatever. We still don't know what Biden is up to. Trump is still on his reality thing. Kanye's mad at him, and But back to Australia and killing all of these aborigines. The Brits have got to pay. Like, we're talking about Meg and the Prince Harry. Well, why don't you guys go to Australia and fix what happened? I mean, it's not good enough that Prince Harry married a sister or half sister. She ain't really a sister. I really am. Her mama's. Well, whatever. No, she looks just like my niece, so whatever. Yeah, I just think that there need to be some more issues. There needs to be some more solutions so that we can heal. The black diaspora. There it is. In Brazil, in the Caribbean islands, in Jamaica, in I don't know what's going on in India. Were we? I don't know. Are they a part of the black diaspora? Because they don't really, I don't know. In the Americas, in Australia, Sydney, I am just so appalled. I'm really in Belgium. In the Congo. And, as I become more aware of different areas around the world. When I developed my travel channel, which I really need to do that. I really need to start bringing up my travel channel in by the end of this month, which is here. I need to do it before August. You know, we really need to invade, explore, expand our intelligence, our minds to what Britain um, and Caucasian people of Europe have done to blacks, Aborigines, Indians over the world, and they need to pay. All of the things that were taken away from Africa need to be returned. That's a part of the healing. All of the diamonds needs to be sent back. If you're not going to send back the diamonds, send back the money. See, Europe is very grandiose. Everything is grand. I told you that in one of my videos. Europe, when you go to Europe, they have big, huge castles, the church, Notre Dame. It's really tall. It's really tall. I have a picture that I took, I think, in 2014. And I'm just a little thing. When I was in Portugal, in Lisbon, I took another picture next to a door. And everything is really grandiose. Even Napoleon. Is it Napoleon or Christopher Columbus? I'm not exactly sure, but one of them. They have, a castle. It's just the castles. Everything is great. It's not like that in America. It's not grandiose, but when I went to Prague, all the beautiful tall churches and castles, everything is grand. But I think all of that money, and the Catholic Church, I've been to Rome. I didn't go to the Vatican because I'm not into Catholicism. They're a bunch of rapists and pedophiles. And I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years, a very prominent high school. But Catholicism, I don't respect it. And a lot of people in my family on my father's side are Catholics. But how can you represent a church that's based on pedophilia or robbery and killings, stealing of golds and everything? I don't get down like that. That's ignorant. And I think that we need to, as a people, black, white, Jewish, Asian, Mexican, Latino, Native, Australian, blah, blah, blah. The thing said black Australians. Black Australians, not Aborigines. Black Australians. Let that sink in, okay? I'll do a part 2, part 3, and part 4. I need to do more research on this. Actually, I need to go back to school and go into black diaspora. Is that a major? Let me think about it. I'll get back to you guys. Talk to you guys later. Bye.